few films have achieved the peculiar immortality of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Released in 1975 to poor box office returns, the bizarre rock musical seemed destined for obscurity. Yet 50 years later, it holds a singular honor. It has never stopped playing in theaters. Midnight screenings around the world continue to draw crowds, keeping alive the tradition of audience callbacks, costume performances, and the infectious time warp dance. So, what alchemy transformed a critical and commercial flop into the ultimate cult classic? The answer lies in its blend of campy sci-fi parody, unapologetic sexual expression, and the kind of audience participation that turned watching the film into a communal ritual. A sci-fi spoof with a rock and roll heart. Conceived by Richard O'Brien as a send-up of 1950s horror and science fiction tropes, the film follows square couple Brad, Barry Bostwick, and Janet, Susan Sarandon, whose misadventures begin when they stumble into the gothic lair of Dr. Frank-N-Furter, Tim Curry. A sweet transvestite, scientist with a flair for theatrics, Frank unveils his latest creation, a glittering muscle man named Rocky. What follows is a kaleidoscope of camp, seduction, betrayal, and murder, all set to glam rock anthems that remain irresistibly catchy. Unlike other jukebox-inspired musicals of its time, Rocky Horror's score is a vibrant mix of glam, rockabilly, and pop, with songs like Sweet Transvestite and Time Warp cementing themselves as staples of pop culture. The energy of the music allows the film to revel in its absurdity without collapsing under it. Tim Curry's defining performance. Central to the film's staying power is Tim Curry, whose performance as Frank-N-Furter is equal parts seductive, grotesque, and magnetic. In 1975, it was rare, almost unthinkable, for a mainstream film to present such an openly queer and gender-fluid character. Curry not only embraced the role but elevated it, crafting one of cinema's most fearless performances. Frank is both liberator and cautionary tale, a figure who lives without boundaries but whose excesses ultimately lead to his downfall. A mirror of the sexual revolution. Seen through the lens of history, the film captures the shifting cultural landscape of the 1970s. In the wake of the sexual revolution, and before the AIDS crisis reshaped conversations around sexuality, Rocky Horror reflected a world in flux. Brad and Janet's journey, from repression to liberation to bewilderment, mirrored the anxieties and exhilarations of audiences navigating new freedoms in gender and sexual identity. The film's enduring paradox is that its message is both playful and profound. Embrace self-expression, but recognize its consequences. The birth of a cult phenomenon. While the movie alone might have remained a quirky curiosity, the culture it spawned is what cemented its legend. Midnight screenings transformed the film into a participatory experience. Fans shouted witty retorts at the screen, danced in the aisles, and recreated scenes in costume. Over time, the audience became as essential to the show as the film itself. This community-driven revival not only rescued Rocky Horror from obscurity, but also created a safe space for queer expression and outsider identity. To this day, stepping into a midnight screening means entering a parallel world where conformity is left at the door. A legacy unlike any other. Critically, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is far from perfect. Its pacing falters, the staging can feel stiff, and the cinematic adaptation loses some of the raw energy of the stage production. But perfection was never the point. The film endures because it celebrates imperfection, individuality, and joyful excess. Half a century on, Rocky Horror remains the ultimate midnight movie. It is less a piece of cinema than a living tradition, one that thrives on its flaws as much as its triumphs. For Tim Curry, Richard O'Brien, and generations of fans, it's not just a movie, it's an invitation to do the time warp again.